Okay, let's start the webinar now. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again to today's webinar, which deals with thermal analysis and data integrity. My name is Gabriele Kaiser, and I'm with NEDG almost for 28 years. Currently, I am the business field manager for pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and food. Before we go into detail and before we start the lecture, I just would like to draw your attention to the point that you can communicate with me. So on the right side of your screen, you can find a panel with a question window. And please write down in this question window your questions and comments. I can read that and I will answer your questions after the lecture. Thank you very much for that. But let's start now the webinar in detail. If you go to Google, for example, and you type in data integrity as a term, then you can find more than 7 million hits. So that means there's a lot of information in the internet what deals with this term data integrity. And I hope I can sum up some of the key points within the next 30 or 40 minutes. Data integrity does not only relate to electronic records, it's also valid for paper documents, and it's in the FDA's primary inspection objective for about 9 years now. FDA is the abbreviation of the US Food and Drug Administration. But not only the FDA has requirements for data integrity, there are also other authorities or other organizations which have such requirements. For example, also MHRA for Europe. This is Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency in the UK. Data integrity is in the focus of such organizations, and this will lead to an increased number of findings regarding to data integrity issues. And this also will have the consequence that the concentration on this topic is increased even more. So that means it goes up and up and up. And this is also the reason why we can find, for example, since 2014, an increased number of so-called warning letters. 2014, we had a number of about 10, and 2017, we had a number of about 55, 56. But what does data integrity really mean? And what you can see over here, this is the definition of the FDA, of the US Food and Drug Administration, what can be found in the document Data Integrity and Compliance with Drug CGMP Questions and Answers. FDA says that data integrity refers to the completeness, consistency, and accuracy of data. And this means that such data should be attributable, legible, contemporaneously recorded, original or true copy, and accurate. And attributable, legible, and so on, the abbreviation for this is Alcoa. So Alcoa is used to describe these attributes. And this is important for the entire life cycle of the data from the generation up to the end of the lifetime. If, and this is also an important point, if they are generated in a CGMP environment. GMP means good manufacturing practice, and CGMP means current good manufacturing practice. But what does attributable, legible, and so on mean in detail? And this we can see on the next slide. So that means attributable. This stands for a direct relationship between a measurement, for example, and the person who has performed the measurement, including the specification when it was performed. So that means indication of date and time, for example. L, legible, means that the recorded data must be readable and understandable. But this is not all. They should also be traceable, for example. So that means that it should be possible to trace back the data. C stands for the fact that data must be recorded at the time it's generated or observed. So that means that there should be no time interval in between the generation and the recording, so that there is no space or no room or no time for any kind of modification. O stands for original. That data should be recorded, stored, and maintained in its original form. Or if this is not possible, to have a true copy of it. And the last A, accurate, stands for that recorded data must be correct, truthful, complete, reliable, and that there should be no change without documentation. So it is possible to change something, but if a change is necessary, then everything should be documented. This is, or this was, the Alcoa principle, but sometimes you can also read in literature Alcoa Plus. And Alcoa Plus is the Alcoa principle, what we have seen up to now, plus some additional attributes. And these additional 4 attributes are complete, consistent, enduring, and available. And this means, for example, complete, that all data is at hand, including all analysis what has been done on a certain sample. So even if it was necessary to make reanalysis, to make repeating measurements, and so on. Consistent means that all data is recorded chronologically with appropriate date and time stamps, so that there is a clear relationship between date and time of a certain action and the data itself. Enduring means that data is recorded in a permanent form, and available means that if there is an audit or an inspection, that the data is accessible during its entire life cycle for review. But what does it mean if data, for example, does not fulfill these Alcoa or Alcoa Plus attributes, or this Alcoa or Alcoa Plus principle? Yeah, it can lead to the fact that quality processes do not stand up to scrutiny, that they are questionable. It can have the consequence that the safety and efficacy of the pharmaceutical product becomes doubtful. There can also be a risk for patients' health in the last consequence, but it can also have an influence on the reputation of the manufacturer, and also maybe it's can also have the consequence that products may be recalled. However, data integrity is not a new requirement. And together with data integrity, there is sometimes also this 21 CFR Part 11 mentioned. This can also be read quite often in literature. 21 CFR Part 11 means it's the 11th part of the 21st Code of Federal Regulations. So it's also issued by the US Food and Drug Administration, and it became effective already in the late 90s, in 1997. And this 21 CFR Part 11 regulation deals with electronic records and electronic signatures, how they can be used in lieu of paper records or paper documents. This 21 CFR Part 11 regulation applies for if you need to work under practical rule environment, and it applies for records which are submitted or which should be submitted to the FDA or which are relevant for FDA inspection. There is some overlapping between what we have seen before in the Alcoa or Alcoa Plus principle and in the 21 CFR Part 11 regulation. And one point of overlapping is the so-called audit trail. Audit trail means in principle that every relevant action inside of a software, for example, is documented. And you have a direct relationship between the action and the person and the date and the time, for example, when the action was carried out. The original definition of the FDA you can read over here. They define audit trail as a secure computer-generated time-stamped electronic record that allows for reconstruction of the course of events relating to the creation, modification, or deletion of an electronic record. So that means they also emphasize on the term reconstruction. So everything should be clear how the data was produced. Another point which you can also find in the data integrity requirements as well as in 21 CFR Part 11 is the restricted access to computer systems. So that not everybody has the right to do anything, but that it's possible to assign permissions or to assign roles to certain persons so that only authorized persons are allowed to do specific actions. And the third point, for example, is that also in the data integrity requirements, it's possible to use electronic signatures instead of handwritten ones. What are the key requirements of 21 CFR Part 11 now? Audit trail and limited system access we have seen already, but there are some more requirements included in that regulation. And for example, that you should have a generation of accurate and complete copies of records in human readable and electronic form. So that means that data should not be only readable electronically, but also by humans. Records should be protected. Signatures shall be directly related to the name of the signer and linked to the electronic records, so that there is also a direct relationship between the signature, the abbreviation, for example, the electronic record, and the full name of the signer. And of course, such electronic signature shall be unique. This leads us to the question, is it possible for a software or an analytical instrument, which consists of hardware and software, to be compliant to 21 CFR Part 11? But here we have to say, no, it's not possible. The reason for this is that 21 CFR Part 11 does not only contain technical requirements, it also contains organizational requirements. And of course, no software and no analytical instrument can do some or can fulfill some organizational requirements. And one of these organizational requirements, for example, is that the persons who are working with electronic records or electronic signatures and are using also electronic records and electronic signatures shall have the appropriate knowledge to perform the tasks. Let's go a little bit to the Netsch software, and just to show you what the Netsch software can offer in that context. And the Netsch software is called Proteus or Proteus. This name is coming from Greek mythology. Nowadays we are in the 8th generation, and Proteus Protect, this is the add-on to the standard Proteus software, which meets the requirements of 21 CFR Part 11. What can you find inside of the software? Measurement data cannot be modified. Every action, every relevant action is documented within an audit trail. So there is an audit trail which you can find inside of the software, which cannot be switched off. It works all the time. But not everybody has access to this audit trail. Only authorized persons have access to it, so that not everybody can see what anybody is doing. We have a user management, and we also have a password management for effective access control within the Netsch software. There is also a watchdog function included, so that there is an automatic logout if there is a certain defined time of or defined period of inactivity exceeded. It has also a signature module where various parts can be signed. So for example, methods can be signed, calibrations can be signed, and also analysis dates can be signed. And we also have a thing which is called email notification. So that means that the person authorized to sign can be informed by email that a new signature is pending, because it's not necessary to sign a certain action or a certain evaluation immediately. This can also be done in retrospect, so that the authorized person can sign one document, one evaluation after another. And let's have now a little bit closer look to how the software works and how the software follows the Alcoa Plus principle. Point one is the direct relationship between the measurement and the person who has carried out the measurement, including the specification when it was done. So that means attributable. And what you see over here, this is a part, this is not all the information which is stored in the header of a measurement file, but it's a part of the information. And what you can see over here is we have here the date and the time of the measurement. This is the starting time. This is the ending time, together with the corresponding date. We have the name of the user or the abbreviation of the user who has done the measurement. But we have also an indication about the instrument, including the instrument number. We have mentioned the name of the measurement, so the file name here. We have an indication of the used method, who has signed the new method or the used method, and the signature state of the method. We have also an indication about the used calibration files, and so on. So this is what you can find in the header of a typical measurement. But also in the audit trail, you can find some of these informations. So this is an excerpt from an audit trail, and here one line is zoomed out, and here again we see the date and the time of the corresponding action. We see the user and what he has done. He has saved a record. And here, the name of the user, this is really directly connected to the user's full name in the Proteus management part. And such user accounts can also not be deleted. They can just be deactivated or activated again afterwards. And this is the picture how it looks like. So this is a part of this Proteus management. And here you have the full name of the user, first name and last name, and also the corresponding username. And here the Proteus Protect software administrator can activate or deactivate this user. But just to say it once again, it's not possible to delete the user anymore. And here on the right side, we have the permissions of the user. So here we have the different possibilities, the different permissions, and here we have the check marks for allowing or denying it. This is also a thing the Proteus Protect software administrator can do. Next point is legible. So that recorded data must be readable. They must be understandable, and they also should be traceable. And this covers several aspects. One aspect is that the Proteus software is upward compatible. Upward compatible means that the software is able to load in older files, or it means files which are performed in previous software versions. Another aspect is that data can be exported in various formats, in various legible, readable formats. So in ASCII format, for example, in CSV format, or also in PDF format. And referring to the traceability, it's important to mention that analysis are in the Netsch software stored as so-called analysis states. And an analysis state is a complete analysis and gives a full picture, something what you can see here on the screen, for example. This situation can be stored as an analysis state, but it's not a fixed picture. It is it is still flexible, and also later on it can be another evaluation can be added, or it can be changed something. But if it's necessary to change something, or if the user would like to change something afterwards, it's possible, but the analysis should be stored under a new name. Not the analysis, but the analysis state should be stored under a new name. So that means that each state of analysis has another analysis state with another name. And all these actions are documented in the audit trail. And in the audit trail, both the name of the analysis state and also the name of the measurement on which the analysis is based on are mentioned. Let us switch over to C. And C means that data must be recorded at the time it is generated or observed. We have seen already the information which you can find in the header of a measurement file. And there's also, for example, there's also given the information of the starting time and the ending time of a measurement. And together with the date, with the corresponding date. And both information, date and time, these are taken from the computer system and usually refer to the moment of the completion of the particular action. So that means when the measurement stops, when the measurement is finished, then that time and that date is used for documentation. O, original. Here we can say that within the net Proteus software, the data are only handled in its binary form. So if you load data into the evaluation part of the software, for example, usually the data are in its binary form, and these data cannot be modified from outside because there is a checksum which is checked, and if this checksum is not the right one, the file or the data cannot be loaded anymore. Additionally, it's important to mention that data cannot be overwritten. The raw data cannot be overwritten. This is the fact. Raw data cannot be overwritten. Raw data remain always untouched. As soon as you load the raw data into the evaluation software and you process the data in any kind, you do any kind of evaluation, it's not possible to store something under the same name. There's only the possibility to store an analysis state, what we have seen already before. A, the second A, which stands for accurate. Recorded data must be correct, truthful, complete, and reliable. Editing is not carried out without documentation. Here, the signature and the corresponding approval comes into play. Within the net software, we can sign different things. We can sign methods. So the software is method-based, but such methods cannot only contain the measurement configuration and the measurement program, measurement conditions in general, but they can also include, if desired, evaluation procedures. It's possible, besides methods, it's possible to sign calibrations and also to sign analysis states. Altogether, we have 4 different signature levels. Created, this is the basic level. So each measurement which is finished is also created. Then data can be reviewed, they can be approved, but they also can be rejected, for example. And rejected means that they shall not longer be used. For example, if it is recognized that a certain temperature program is not suitable and it should not be used anymore, then you can mark it as rejected. And these things can be seen in the signature history. Every measurement file has, every measurement data have, and here you see one example. User 1 has created the measurement data. User 2 has reviewed it, and the senior scientists have approved it immediately. The signature state is also documented in the audit trail, and this is an example for that. Here we see again a line out of the audit trail with the date, with the time, with the user identification, with the action, here record signed in the analysis state. And together with this line, we get also some more information. What you see over here, we see who has done the signature, when the signature has been done, the signature level, in this case it's approved, and we get also a link to the signed analysis state. So that means from here, directly from the audit trail, it's also possible to call up the corresponding analysis state and to have a look on it. The comment fields here are not filled, but in principle, it's possible also to add some comments here. So why a certain signature was given or not given, if there's something specifically interesting for that together with this evaluation or not. Complete. So these are now the 4 additional attributes for the Alcoa Plus principle. Complete means, for example, that measurements or measurement data are automatically stored within the Proteus software along with all metadata. And we have seen this already in the header information. There is an indication of the instrument type, of the serial number of the instrument, of the measurement configuration, and so on. Consistent. All data is recorded chronologically with appropriate date and timestamp. And this is what we have seen quite often within the last 30-35 minutes, that almost everywhere inside of the audit trail and as well as in the header information, we get an indication of date and time. So we see the date and also the time in hours, minutes, and seconds. Data is recorded in permanent maintainable form enduring. So here we have seen that all versions of the NetProteus software are able to read data created in previous versions. And available, that data is accessible for review, for audit or inspection during its entire life cycle. So here we can say that the audit trail is a thing which cannot be deleted, and it cannot even be switched off. It's always active. And so the audit trail is always available. Also, measurement data and analysis states are always available if they, and this is the user's responsibility, if they are stored on a server or on any kind of electronic medium which is maintained and protected against data loss. So let's sum up what we have heard within the last 35 minutes. We have seen that Alcoa, or the Alcoa Plus principle, is very important for data integrity, and that Alcoa stands for attributable, legible, contemporaneous, recorded, original, and accurate. That there are some overlapping between these Alcoa requirements and 21 CFR Part 11, which is quite old, which became effective in the late 70s, especially the audit trail and also the limitation of access to computer systems. And we have seen that how the Netsch Proteus software follows the Alcoa or Alcoa Plus principle to ensure data integrity. Thank you very much for your attention.